worldwide fans of the planet's hottest entertainment with an edge. Jaime En Fuego here, welcoming you once again for the first time in a bit to my namesake program, Enfuegotainment. That is right, you can just call me Fuego for short, and as always, I'm super stoked that you are here to take a listen to my thoughts about AD ASTRA, directed by James Gray, who has also done The Immigrant, We Own the Night, Lost City of Z, but he's most definitely like more of a slow, ruminating, artful sort of director, and so that's the thing, is when you approach a film like this, despite the fact that it's sci-fi, you really have to understand that, you know, it's not going to be necessarily action-packed, and it's probably going to be just very methodical and contemplative, and it's going to be more 2001 than like Star Wars, I guess, or something of that nature. And so yes, this is the second leading, well, kind of leading role, because he is kind of like a co-lead in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, but yeah, second pretty awesome film that I've seen Mr. Pitt in this past year. But we also have Ruth Negga in this movie, Liv Tyler, Tommy Lee Jones. It's a great cast movie, and it's a great looking movie. Is it a great movie though? I mean, it's pretty awesome at times, but yet there's other instances where it's most definitely like slightly disappointing in that regard. So what I like to do here on Enfuegotainment is always cover a little bueno, malo, and feo. That is if it's a full review proper, as opposed to a rapido fuego review, which I will be doing some of here in the very near future in the month of October. But just to quickly address, one of the reasons why you haven't seen a lot of reviews on here in the last month or so is because of the fact that over on the channel where I spend the predominance of my time, the horror show, we have had a ton of stuff just in the just kind of planning stages of sorts, and everything was announced this past week, and I'm going to give you a rundown about that at the end. But AD ASTRA and the bueno. The bueno is the fact that it is seriously a absolute awe-inspiring space film, and that's really, I mean, it's up there with, you know, things like Gravity and Interstellar, and it has kind of a similar vibe. Despite the fact that it's a lot of Brad Pitt just sitting and staring and not necessarily saying as much, he does give a very good performance, and a performance that entails vulnerability and just shows what's the word that I'm looking for? Definitely some regret. And I mean, he doesn't. It's a lot of him just on the screen himself, not even necessarily interacting with other people. I do like the story as well, and the fact that basically concept is his father was studying some things like in the far reaches of our solar system, and when some problems that might be kind of connected, without spoiling too much, with the installation that his father presumably still is alive on, despite it's something that went wrong that I can't necessarily like jump into too deeply. It basically boils down to Brad Pitt going on this mission where he is trying to get to his father to get some answers, and it's simple, and it's not necessarily anything we haven't seen before, but especially when certain things that are aspired towards transpire, it really does hit you in the feels without spoiling too much. And I always try to make these kind of non-spoilery. Maybe I will make spoilers at the end be part of the feo or something like that. But yeah, breathtaking looking, and just, I mean, for the fact that they were dealing with tropes that we're familiar with, and, you know, certain things that we have indeed seen before, it handled them solidly and effectively. And there is one specific thing in this film that I can't say I've ever witnessed in a space movie before, and it entails like jumping into almost like an asteroid field kind of thing, and it's a really dope scene, and it's definitely, as a fan of space horror and space science fiction of the thought-provoking dramatic variety, that was a really cool beat, and so I will give it that. And also, I have to make mention, for whatever reason, I can't remember a score in recent memory, because, you know, this relies heavily on score in those moments where there isn't dialogue, and there's a lot of moments where there isn't dialogue, and like I said, characters just like staring and stuff, and you can tell they're just, you know, contemplating, ruminating, all these words that I've kind of used already. The score, I think, is amazing in this movie, and for whatever reason, it evoked serious emotion within me anytime they came to like this main sweeping kind of orchestral bit, and it just made me emotional. I don't know, for whatever reason. It was very, very effective in that regard. But since I don't try to make these reviews as plodding and lengthy and slow burn as this film was, that's an easy segue into the MALO, into the bad, is the fact that this movie will be perceived by a lot of people as very, very boring. And, you know, it's a deliberate thing. It's very much like Terrence Malick almost in its approach, in just how slow of an emotional burn that it is, and it's not going to be able to captivate a lot of people. It's very much for a selective audience, and that may be even more of an ugly, more of a feo than a MALO. But yeah, there's certain characters like Naga who need more screen time and they don't get it. It's really like glorified cameo type role. Same with Liv Tyler, but at least as far as in the structuring of the storytelling, it makes complete sense that, you know, that's the way things would go. But yeah, this is a slow movie, and it very much does rely on its visuals in a lot of cases, and the, you know, pretty faces like, you know, Brad's that we do see. So it's definitely not going to be for everybody in that regard. And but there's not really much else that I can say beyond that, because of the fact that it's just really one of those situations where it's not your cup of tea. It is or it isn't, and yet it's not on the level of like a Gravity or an Interstellar, but I feel like it still needs to be involved in the conversation for, you know, space films of the last decade that kind of have that sort of vibe to a degree. I mean, it's certainly not gonna, I mean, those films don't even challenge like a 2001 or something of that nature, but nonetheless, they're still, as we do like the decade countdown of films of this nature, you know, that are very thought-provoking, of the science fiction variety, that are taking place in space. I mean, this would probably be involved in the conversation for this decade, but as far as the all-time, definitely not. And that is, I guess that's probably the fam that I can jump into, and I will go into some slight spoiler territory here, is that there's some stuff that Brad Pitt does in this movie, including causing the death of a bunch of people when he kind of tries to like stow away on a mission, so to speak, and then he ends up the only one, and it turns into just like a little slap on the wrist sort of thing, because he's able to get to the base that his father was on, which is, oh boy, I'm trying to, I think it's just aside from Neptune, if I remember correctly. It's been a week or so since I watched this movie now, since I'm finally getting around to reviewing this, because we're busy with so many other things. But boy, it's either Neptune or Uranus. Anyway, it's very close to the end of our solar system where this confrontation with his father, Tommy Lee Jones, actually takes place. And yeah, some other feo is definitely what Tommy Lee Jones, like with the death of all of these crew members and stuff, and how he's the only one still left alive, but yet the weird parallel of the fact that his son kind of sacrifices all of these other people to get to his father, to avert a bigger disaster from transpiring because of what's going on Earth, you know, from these weird like cosmic reverberation sort of thing. It's almost like aftershocks from an earthquake or something. And so yeah, there is some ugly in the fact that, one, we overlook what Brad Pitt did because it really turns into like breaking an egg to make an omelet sort of thing, and it's definitely in that regard, I must admit. But then, I don't know, it's kind of ugly in the way that I did feel, I felt the feels, as, you know, just lame as that may be to say. I definitely was hit to my core when he finally gets to have that conversation with his father, and he's just very, it's ugly in the way that he's like, I love my work and I didn't really love you that much, and that's why I went out here as opposed to being a father. And that's definitely ugly themes to just very, very bluntly and starkly, you know, kind of contrast and stuff. So at the end, I have been trying here in the year of 19 to give actual grades to my films, and so from 1 Fuego Fireball all the way up to 5. This is definitely a 3. So this is a Bueno movie, but it is definitely not a Fuego film, which would be 4, and it's definitely not Enfuego, which is 5. I think the only film I've given that distinction to this past year was Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, because that still might be my favorite film of the year. It's either that or probably Wild Rose, which is a terrific terrific film about this woman from the UK who wants to move to Nashville and be a singer. So yes, this gets 3. This is Bueno. It's definitely not a bad movie, but it's not a great or a terrific movie, but it does have some great visuals, a terrific score, some solid performances, and so there is far, far more bueno than bad or ugly in this film. And in fact, the ugly actually is some of the best enhancements to the storytelling that we get. So I have been Jaime En Fuego, and you can find moi on all social media sectors like Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and here on YouTube, which is where you're seeing me, obviously. There's still going to be some more Star Wars coverage coming as we approach the release of The Rise of Skywalker Episode 9 in December. I have already this past year done reviews of the prequels. I revisited Rogue One. I've read some of the new novels, one about Padme that came out, another one about Dooku that came out. I've done some comic book coverage in the Star Wars Marvelverse, so you can check all of those out. But if you're really wanting spectacular coverage, you probably are already over here from the horror show. But in case for whatever strange reason you're not, you can find me at youtube.com/the horror show channel. That is where, yes, 1, sometimes 2 episodes per day, every single day, covering everything under the horror umbrella, from trailers to film and TV and books and comics and even like Let's Plays and, convention coverage, celebrity stuff, unboxings. I mean, we are all over the place. We try to be as comprehensive as possible with the coverage. And then lastly, every Monday, it is my privilege and honor to be a part of the Willis Greedia Show business, hashtag show business, and that is a program every Monday, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, where we look back at the weekend box office, we look ahead to the upcoming weekend, and we have a bit of palaver about all of the biggest news stories of the past week. So, I have been Fuego, y'all have been awesome, and until the real of Ka comes around once more, I shall give my typical send-off and say hasta luego, cinemigos, but I am hopeful that we get to share more of this film palaver sooner rather than later. Peace.